Hello and welcome back. I always love this time together. It's really amazing. And if you're new here, you don't know who I am, you don't know what's going on. Well, my name is Mary Alice Coleman. And since August 15th, I've been going live on Mondays and Fridays at 10 a.m. Pacific time. And I am a coach, a mentor, a workshop leader, a speaker, an author, other things, for about 30 years. And so what I'm doing is I just want to come on here and use my channel for good and to be of service. And I've been sharing very consistently about how to be a human being. And my expertise has been in helping people who were traumatized in childhood. But that's not the only thing. I start there, but then I go into how do we operate as human beings? Who are we? How does it work? How does our personality develop? I ask you, why do you think what you think or feel what you feel? Why do you believe what you believe? And so we're discussing in each video, because one builds on another, of how we become who we are. And then discussing what about the things that we'd like to change? So we're doing that too. I think it's so important that we understand ourselves and we understand that we are very resilient people and strong. Many of us have gone through really difficult times, and many of us can get through those difficult times. But how do we do that? I talk about that too. And I hope that you'll check out the other videos because I do believe they'll be very helpful. They do build on each other. You're going to find out how all these topics that I've been talking about are connected. They're all connected. They're all connected. They're not just one thing over here and one thing over there. And so far we've discussed, let me get my notes here. We started out talking about on August 15th, trauma in childhood and how that affects us. What happens? What do we do? What goes on in the brain? What goes on in the child's psyche and everything? And when you understand, and I go deep, I mean, when you understand what I'm saying, it really helps us to connect our thoughts and feelings with maybe difficulties from the past and how to correct that. Because when you can reverse engineer, when you can find out what's going on in our minds and in our brain, you can reverse engineer a trigger. You can see how you have more control over some things in your life than you've been led to believe. I'll put it that way. And anyway, you are greatly loved. Everybody's accepted here. I hope that everything that I share is of service to you and really helpful. And yeah, and if you ever have questions, you can get in touch with me. I'm also a medium and a psychic, but I don't talk a whole lot about that, but that is a part of who I am and what I do. And when I do coach, sometimes that psychic ability comes into play, and it can be very helpful to a coaching session or 2 or 3. Sometimes it doesn't need to come in at all, but it does, and it can be helpful. So just want to share that with you. So some of the things we've covered is, like I said, about trauma. We've covered creativity, our thoughts, boundaries. We're going to do more in the inner child. That is really important to understand. It's very connected to emotional IQ and social IQ. We've talked about that. We talked about codependency. Today we're talking about values. Last week we talked about relationships. And when we talked about relationships, we are human beings who want connection. We want to love and be loved. And we hope that in our lifetime, that will be the best experience that we have in our life. And many times it doesn't turn out to be that great. And so everything that I talk about leads up to how we relate to others and the relationships we have with others. And today's no different. We're going to talk about values. Do you know your core values? Are you aware of your values? And are you aware that some values do change over time? These are all great questions, because when we can understand that about ourselves, it's one more thing that we know ourselves. All I share is to bring about self-love, self-respect, self-confidence, and understanding. When we have that for ourselves, it makes life just a little more smooth and better. It doesn't make problems go away, but it helps us learn how to deal with challenges in life better, and coming from higher ground and higher thought patterns and being upgraded and up-leveled in our life. So when we have a lot more understanding of who we are, how we operate as human beings, how you operate, that's the thing. I want it to be individual for you, individualized for you. So you can think about yourself and understand yourself better. I do, I've been doing this for 30 years. I've talked to people from all over. And I tell you that sometimes our own self feels like a mystery, and we just react to life instead of respond. And again, the previous videos tells you why that happens. So do check that out. So today we're talking about values. What are values and where do they come from? That's a good question, right? Well, our values really are stemming from, I jotted, let me read it so I don't blow this. It says, values are individual beliefs that motivate people to act one way or another, and they serve as a guide for human behavior. Some people maintain values of their parents, and I call it paradigms, because I did a whole thing on paradigms, that can cause upset later in life. And that's true, because sometimes we hold things within us that aren't helpful or aren't even worth believing anymore. Maybe at one time when we were younger, we thought we had to believe a certain way. We were told to believe a certain way. And within those beliefs are certain values that we hold. And as we get older, they don't serve us well anymore. They don't make sense, in other words. So we begin to develop other values, other things that are important to us. And I'm gonna read this list of words that are values, and you can connect to some of them or all of them or a few of them. But this is what I mean by what we value in life. Spiritual growth or awareness, loyalty, honesty, compassion, kindness, integrity, selflessness, generosity, determination, courage, tolerance, trustworthiness, ethics and morals, equanimity, altruism, appreciation, empathy, self-reliance, attentiveness, family, loved ones, and actually the list can go on and on and on. But these are some of the ones that are most common in most humans, really. And I bet you can identify with some of those, right? Well, how do we know about our values if we never really sat down and thought about it and wrote it out? Like, what do I value? We value things outside our life. We value belongings. We make an investment in perhaps our car, our furnishings, our homes, clothing, whatever. Because when we do that, that's something that we value and we invest in. And for some people, they might not find it that important to have a lot of clothes or think they need to look a certain way or whatever. That's fine. That means they value a different look, They value being practical. So yeah, everybody's a little bit different in what they value. The values can be broken down into 3 categories. And it begins with character, a character of a person. Sometimes you can just be with a friend or even a stranger and see how they behave, and you can tell what they value in life. You can tell when you're with somebody when they're kind. Maybe you're out and about running errands together or having a meal, and you know that they're kind and they're patient and they speak well to others. They don't condemn or criticize others. They are very kind and compassionate. So let's say you're out having a meal together and the person coming over to take your order, are they kind to that person? Do they call them by their name or look them in the eye? Are they recognizing them as a human being? You know, being on the road, are people patient on the road? People that you're with, are you patient on the road, or do you have a kind of road rage? What is it that you value for yourself? How do you want to show up in the world? And I think that's what's important. So the list that I just shared with you is a list of what we call characteristics. They present our character to the world. And I know when we see people out there who are very annoying, or they're critical, or they're mean, or just not very nice, and give people a hard time, you know, they're not, you can see what their character's like. Maybe not the best. And I'm not saying some people just have a bad day once in a while or in a bad mood once in a while. I'm talking about consistently, you know, that they're kind of grumpy all the time. And there's a lot to be said for what's behind that grumpiness. And I've covered that in previous videos. So that's okay. You can watch those and understand, because, you know, we show up in the world how we feel about ourselves, about other people, and about life in general. And we build our character over time. And that's why I say our values can change over time. You know, when we're a teenager, you know, we value our, you know, hanging out with friends or playing video games or whatever, looking cool or being on TikTok. I don't know. But as you grow older, those kind of diminish and we build better values for ourselves. And we want to be people of good character. I think most of us really desire that. And sometimes maybe what's gone on in our past growing up has built defenses in us to be defensive or be on the offense, or to shrink, or to be rebellious just because. And you're finding those ways of being aren't helpful in your life. They don't feel good actually, but they're habits that were developed. So now you see that and you're like, you know what? I want to show up better. I want to be kinder. I want to be more nice to people in my life. I want to be more patient. And so we work on these things and we build our character that way. And that's a good thing. It's a really good thing as we go through life to do that. Now, another category is personal values. So let me explain. I'll just say for myself, I have some personal values. What I hold value to me, very importantly, is yes, not only my family and my spiritual connection and things like that, but my personal values are that my environment means a lot to me. Where I live, I like to decorate it in a way that feels that's warm and welcoming and classic and comfortable, with art pieces, artwork. I like to decorate the house little bit, during the seasons, maybe a little more spring-like with flowers or some garland, or now in the fall, having pumpkins around and beautiful leaves and more candles. I love candles. So that's just one way to express myself, what I value personally. Now, for you, it could be totally different. You might value a more contemporary look. You might value a simplistic look. You might value having an electric car rather than a conventional gas car, fueled car. So there are exact personal preferences and personal values that are special to us as individuals, right? And that's a good thing. That's kind of cool, I think. Could be in music. Again, I love music. I love different kinds of music. My playlist has all kinds of different, it has my wonderful oldies, and it has current, it has rock, it has classical, and everything in between. So I value music, and I listen to it every single day, every day. I can't imagine a world without music or art or theater. The creative arts is something I value as well. So, and for you, that might not be a personal thing that you value. So yeah, just to explain that. And that's important to understand. Now, the third category is the values of work. We can talk about work ethic. We can talk about what's important to you when you work or your job or career. Some people don't hold their work very highly. They're like, whatever, they show up at 9:01 and leave at 4:59. They're like, whatever, I'm not crazy about this. And so they're not valuing that time and that work. Others, their work ethic is 100% no matter what they're doing. They might be in a job currently that's not great. They don't love it, but they know they're headed somewhere else. So they put in a good day's work, and they show up and they do their best. And they make it clear that they're working very hard in whatever they're doing. Other people have different work ethics of love what they do. They're entrepreneurs, and they, start their day loving what they're doing and getting in there and being disciplined and, doing what they have to do to be present to people in life and to their customers or whoever they might be helping out. And they love it. And so they go above and beyond. And so they have high quality, high work ethics, and they love what they do, and they love sharing what they do. So that's the third category. I think it's really important to figure out, what do you value? Having worked with people for so long, for 30 years, and I would hear them say, for example, I value my family. I love my family. They are the best. They mean the world to me. And then as you get to know them and you get to see them in their day-to-day life, they don't act like they value their family. They're not around. They're gone a lot. They're not attending their child's parent-teacher night when they really could, but they chose something else instead. They're not being present. They're not spending time with their spouse. They're off doing other things. And so saying you value your family and then behaving that way, there's a big contradiction there. So what I say is, I know you say you value your family. Tell me how you value your family. And then we get into a discussion, and then they realize, oh, I guess I haven't really been showing up for my family as much as I could be, should be, especially my children. Maybe I don't have to work really super late. I can come home and be with my children, help them with homework, put them to bed. that would be meaningful to them, important for them. And so having that kind of discussion, people see that we have a good talk about what we value, but our behavior says differently. So that's just something to consider as well, right? Just to consider that if you take time this weekend or whenever, just really think about, what do I value? What is important to me? And, it's like saying, oh, I value my health. I value feeling good and eating right and getting a workout in here or there or whatever. But then you look at and go, oh, maybe I say I do, but man, I have too much sugar in my house, or gosh, I haven't really worked out in a week, or, so it becomes something of an interest, not something you're committed to or something that you value deeply. But it's something just to reconsider. It's not to judge it. It's to go, I really do want to hold that precious to me. My health is important. I do want to place that high in my value list. And then you can begin to tweak it to make so that your behavior matches what you say you value. I think that's really important, because we do say, even going over this and looking through my notes and doing a little more research has reminded me of a couple of things. I'm like, that's right. I think I really value that, but I haven't really shown up to do that. So that has helped me. Now, values shift and change. They grow or they can decrease. It depends on your age. It depends on what you're doing. It depends on where you live. Depends on education. So, but I do believe we all have core values. They're core values that can't be changed, that won't be changed, that you will not allow to be changed. There's a quote I really like. Let me read it really quick. And it didn't say who said it. I always like to give credit to the person who said it, but there was no name after it. But it says, if someone can take it away from you, then it's not one of your values. Seriously. If someone can take away, let's say you value honesty and being truthful. But if someone can easily take it away from you, like you're willing to compromise yourself and your values to cheat or lie for somebody, or make up a whole system of belief of truth or value, or truth or honesty, which you really can't, because truth and honesty are truth and honesty. Some people want to twist it and make it convenient for them. Like having an affair. Oh, well, she's just miserable in her marriage, and she'll eventually get a divorce, but she's not divorced. This person has small children at home. Here is a whole character setup that you can see right in front of your eyes if you observe. This person's willing to get into a relationship, an affair with a married woman, and making all kinds of excuses for it. And the married woman, same thing, making all kinds of excuses. It's dishonest, it's not truthful, and it's going to wreak havoc on people's lives in the end. We know this. We know the ending, right? So what would be more honest and truthful? Well, go to your partner and say, I'm struggling in our marriage. I feel we're disconnected. I don't know what to do. I feel like I want to get out there, maybe I'm attracted to someone else, however you want to word it, but let your partner know. Be honest. That is a hard conversation. There's no doubt it's a hard conversation, but it's the honest thing to do. And if you choose, you can maybe seek couples therapy, see if there is a chance for that to survive. If not, have what I like to call conscious uncoupling. I know you've heard that phrase, making that separation and divorce as easy and painless as possible. I know that's not always possible, but that's the goal. And then when there's that definite ending to that relationship, maybe get some counseling and then get into another relationship. Now, that seems like a long process. It seems like it's hard to do. And this is where we need to be honest with ourselves. And usually, doing the right thing is sometimes the hardest thing to do. It's easy to succumb to chemistry. It's easy to succumb to being soothed by somebody else other than our partner. I'm just using this as an example because this happens quite often, more than we'd like. And cheating is wrong. Just, it's wrong. It's always, always wrong. Just go about it the right way, even though the process may take longer. It's better all the way around, and it's healthier. And you start off another relationship very healthy in a good way, not with secrets, not with entanglements. And yeah, so I just wanted to give that as an example. That's a heavy example, but I did want to share it because, again, it happens more often than any of us like to think it does. And just be honest. Honesty is a value to have and to hold and to keep. Truthfulness. If, like I said, if someone can take that away from you, if someone can talk you into lying for them or cheating for them, if someone gives you money to do something that goes against you, what you think is right, then apparently you don't hold that as a value. It's not part of your character or your personality, and you can't claim it to be. So this is a serious talk, but it's really true. If someone can take that away from us, no matter what the value is, what we consider within our character, our personality, then that's not what that is. And it puts a kink in what you think your character is. So it's just something to think about, and yeah, we make mistakes. I think everybody does at one time or another, if not in affairs, it could be something less or whatever. I understand that. But having these values, knowing ourselves and knowing how we want to show up in the world for ourselves and others, there is that system within us too that's like, kind of like, that little bit of guilt that gets in there, like, oh, don't do it, don't go down that road, you're going to feel awful. Or when we do feel awful, and then we need to make amends and ask for forgiveness and recoup that trust again, or whatever situation it is. I remember when I was about 4 or 5 years old, I was with my mother, and she was shopping, and right at my eye level was like penny candy. Back in the day, there was penny candy. And I remember I just took one, and I didn't even think about it. I didn't understand. You just don't take things like that. It was like a little piece of penny candy. And my mom noticed it when we got into the car. She goes, "Where'd you get that?" I said, and I explained, about the penny candy and where it was. And she said, no, honey, you just can't take that. That's what's called stealing. We don't steal. It's wrong. And she told me about that. And she explained that's something you buy. You take that piece of candy to the counter and you buy it. And so we went back in and we bought it. And that taught me a lesson about the value of a piece of candy, a penny candy, right? And of being honest. And so I was brought up that way. And I'm very glad I was brought up with being truthful and being honest. And when we're not, to make amends and make a difference. And that builds our character when we do that. It's like I said, everybody makes mistakes. Everybody's going to blow it one time or another. And we do need to make up for it and rebuild what needs to be rebuilt within ourselves. Character is so important. Character is so important within us. It's like what I just read. Values are individual beliefs that motivate people to act one way or another. They serve as a guide for human behavior. It's true. It does serve as a guide of human behavior. And we all want to be treated well with respect, and have people be polite to us, just we are to them. Some people don't hold that a value, and we see it, don't we? They're mean, they yell, they criticize, they say awful things to people in public. And you wonder, it's like, how is that helpful? First of all, how is that anything that's any good to anybody anyway? It's not. It just is demeaning and devastating and destructive. I think as human beings, we need to do better. We need to be better. We need to assess our own value system and our character. Now, I know people who are watching this, I'm talking to the choir. I know that, you know what I'm talking about. You're amazing people. But, it's good to, if we have children or children around us, I know with my grandchildren, there was this summer we were together at a reunion, and my 11-year grandson just said something really out of character in front of everybody. He thought it was funny. I know it was something probably, an 11 or 12-year-old kid would say with his friends or something. And right away he knew, he's like, we could see, his people were like, what? And I mean, no one shamed him or anything. No one was like, what did, it was just like, he knew that wasn't appropriate to say. And he was sitting next to me, and I just leaned over to him. I said, okay, buddy. I go, character matters. Your character, that matters. And he goes, I know. And I wasn't, and he knows me. He knows I love him. I adore my grandchildren. He knew my tone of voice, everything. I wasn't punishing him. I wasn't shaming him. I was just reminding him. Sometimes kids need reminders because their brains are like preteen to early 20s. The brain isn't even fully developed. And especially in the teen years, it's all over the place with hormones raging and ideas brewing and wanting to be their own self and individual and all that. And I get that. I raised 4 kids. I understand that. And I was one myself. So I get it. It's just having a good reminder to remind our kids that what they do and say matters, because inevitably it'll come back to haunt them. And we know this. Gosh, with social media, no one can get away with anything, right? Even innocent mistakes people can't get away with because somehow it's being recorded and it shows up on social media, which I think is horrible, but people do it. And it's just important to have good character in life. Now, I wanted to mention too about values and relationships, because that's really, really important. Okay, so let's get into that real quick. I'm going to check my time. Okay, got a little time left. When we are interested in somebody and we want to, we're thinking, wow, I can date this person. I'm really interested and I'd like to get to know them better. And it's not just chemistry. You've heard me say this before. Chemistry isn't love. It's a hormonal reaction, and a lot of people get involved with others because they're just excited and they connect and they have all this chemistry and they can have wild sex or whatever, but they don't know each other. That's the thing. They don't know each other. They think that's going to carry them through until it doesn't, right? That type of high intensity chemistry doesn't last. It kind of mellows out, let me put it that way. And not that it can't be great. I mean, you get me. It's just like that intense first, quote unquote honeymoon phase of a relationship. If that's all you're going on, we know that those relationships don't last, because when real life sets in and responsibility sets in and you don't know each other really outside of the bedroom much, I mean, when things happen, when the rubber hits the road and things come up in life and suddenly you're seeing this person just completely overreact and be defensive, and where it was not called for. It just doesn't need to be that way. And suddenly like, oh, what's that about? Or they see you in a different light. They see you on the road and suddenly you have all this road rage, and they're like, oh, I don't like that. These are just little incidences I'm talking about, but you get what I'm saying. It's important to know one another. So it's important to know each other's values. And you can see values because they come out in our behavior. If someone is not nice to somebody else in public, if somebody has an arrogant attitude, an elitist attitude, or think the world owes them something, and they're overly critical of other people or judgmental, I know for me, that's not the kind of person I want in my life. I don't want a friend like that. I don't want to be around people like that. I choose not to be. That is not something I value at all. And sometimes with relationships, people forget to ask themselves, I wonder what they really believe. I wonder how do they value a spiritual life or spiritual growth? Do they have a religion that they follow? Are they, do they have certain hobbies they really like? And that's the other thing is hobbies and interests. Do they connect? Are they coordinated? Can a couple value each other so much that you respect the other's time of, just going golfing or going to the studio to paint or sitting and knitting or working on a car, something like that? There has to be space for that in a relationship. But there needs to be an understanding that there are very hardcore common, or at least very similar values for each other that you share. To share honesty, to share open communication, to share and to value when you're upset that you talk about things, not hide out, not pretend, not to act out. It's really important to know each other on that level. And that takes time, I know. It's not like a first date you go, so, tell me what you value, It's not like that. Because usually we can see in their behavior, a person's behavior, what they're like when you're around them often, and often enough. So you get a feel for it. And then, yeah, maybe you can bring it up one time in a conversation, especially if you want to get engaged or make it a committed relationship. It's important to know. It's important to know each other that well up front, because there'll be a lot of unfolding to do, more so when you're in the relationship year after year. Just good to know each other. It's just good to know what one another really values and what their core values are in life, what their personal values are. That's something to talk about. Maybe you like a certain way a home should be decorated, and they can't stand that style. Well, what do? Because they value the way they live in their environment, and you both have completely different ideas. How do you bring that together? That's something to talk about, right? It's something you both value and to understand with one another, and then figure it out. It's possible. It really is. It's not a hill to die on necessarily. If you have other things in common, you have other values in common, that might not be a hill to die on. And both of you are willing to negotiate how you set up your home. It's just something to think about. So I'm going to end it there, but values, understanding your own values is so important. What do you value? What do you say you value, and does that show up in your life? What are some of your core values? And the core values, I think, has to do with humanity. I think it is universal. I think most of us admire and want those core values of our life to be high quality and show good character, compassion and kindness and generosity, the words that I mentioned earlier, loyalty, honesty. I think most of us really do value those things. And that's wonderful. And it's how we express it to others as well. Do we express it to others? That's what's key. Now, one more thing, I forgot to say one more thing. Now, there are people in the world who are psychopathic, sociopaths, or very disordered. And in their way of thinking and believing, it's very different than ours. They can't help how they are. And that sounds terrible. They can't. They won't. They can't help how they are. And they do awful things. They don't have a value system. They don't have a sense of, like in psychopathies, they don't have a sense of remorse. Rules don't apply to them. They don't even really have much value except what they can gain. It's all about them. And that's a whole other level of discussion. And those people, definitely, we do not want to be around. Some of us, we don't even know it because they're that manipulative. Hopefully we'll recognize it. Our gut will tell us this is not a safe person to be around. We can't trust them, no matter what they say or what they look like. They might look awesome and have a great job or say they have a great job. You know, that's the other thing. Trust your gut. You'll hear me say that a lot. Trust your intuition when you're out and about with people, and understand who you are, what you want in your life, how you want to show up to the world, to others. And every day we just try and do our best and be our best. On any given day, even if we are struggling with depression or struggling with the loss of a loved one, which is, we'll get to that. We'll talk about grief. But we just try and do our best, right? Show up. That's the best we can do. And we come across people that we might want to look down on, but that's the best that they're doing that day. Just have some compassion in that moment for that person instead of judgment. That helps a lot. It helps us, can help them as well. So thank you for listening to this about values and what you value, how to build your character, knowing you want a good character, you want to be seen well in the world, and you want to see others that way too, and be with like-minded people. It's awesome. Thank you again. And remember how amazing you are. Even on an off day, you're still amazing. And you're a miracle on this planet, and you truly matter. So I'm going to say bye for now. Blessings to you.